LinkedIn is a great example of like some things work now that didn't work a few years ago. What can people do that is going to work and that is going to help them really launch that personal brand and get that visibility?
So my best recommendation is 1, optimize your LinkedIn profile. 2, post 1 time per week. There's 1 billion users on LinkedIn, and less than 2% of those billion users post once per week. So it really just takes posting 1 time per week to rank in the top 1% of all of LinkedIn. And these are the billion people that are competing for your job, your clients, your speaking opportunities, your book deal, like any opportunity you want. People are looking for you on LinkedIn, and you're going to stand out above 98% of people if you just post once per week. So it really is that simple. And then via the law of large numbers, you're going to have opportunities come to you, because statistically it's impossible for it not to come to you after enough repetitions. And then you're also going to improve over time, right? Once you have 100 posts, you can easily look back and see what posts performed well and what didn't, and inform your strategy that way and like improve, right? It's, if you post 100 times, it's like going to a piano lesson 100 times. You're going to be way better off than the person that went to the piano lesson 2 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to optimize your profile. You're going to post on LinkedIn 1 time per week, and then periodically you're going to go back, look at what performed well, and use that to learn. That is like the absolute simplest, easiest way to begin.
Welcome back to this episode of Secrets of the Career Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden, and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know that they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtains and some tips and tricks to ultimately make you successful in your career and help you progress a little bit faster. Welcome back, my lovelies, to another amazing episode. Today, we are very blessed to have Courtney Johnson joining us. She is a digital strategist, a creator, and an unapologetic voice behind Slay the Gatekeeper, which we're going to dive into a little bit today. It's a podcast and a movement to ungatekeeping all of the things that are gatekept. And over the past decade, she has built and scaled a social media department, led brand strategy for hundreds of companies, and created personal brand programs for executives, recruiters, and sales teams. We're super jazzed to have you on the podcast, Courtney. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kendall, for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? We gave them a teaser in your quick little bio intro, but what is the, Slay the Gatekeeper movement? What is it that you're doing, and why should listeners be super excited to hear us chat today?
Yeah, so Slay the Gatekeeper really came about this idea that like equality comes from information. I am actually writing a book about this right now, about this idea of information equality. We think that inequality that we have in the world is from just money or just access or just resources. But I truly, truly believe like one of the best ways to bridge the gap of inequality is through information, because a lot of things are gatekept. A lot of things are like, if you know, if you're in this certain like echelon of society, then you get passed down these unwritten rules of the career world, of the business world. And so it's my intention to figure out these cheat codes and ungatekeep them to the world. And as far as my work, the main work that I do is in helping people overcome the fear of being seen on social media. So a lot of my work it's about ungatekeeping, but truly one of the biggest things is about a personal brand, like helping people build their personal brands. And you already know how to build a personal brand. Even if somebody's listening to this and has never even posted anything, you know how to build a personal brand, okay? You post, you make your profiles, right? Like you stay consistent, like boring. Everybody knows that. It's really not the information that's keeping people from building a personal brand. It's the emotion. It's the, oh, I feel cringe. What are my friends going to think? Who am I to be sharing about this? And so I help people with both the tactical aspects of here's how to actually create content, here's how to build your personal brand, and also here is how to move through the emotions of it, because it's really not the tactics that's holding people back. It's the emotional component.
I love this, Courtney. And you are spot on. As somebody who built their platform on social media, I always joke my first few videos that went really viral were very controversial, right? I was talking about how the career game works, talking about all these unspoken rules. People don't like to hear that because they think it should be a meritocracy. I should work really hard and get credit for that. And that's not necessarily how it works. And what I found was the hate comments were a lot. And I have some really good friends in the social media space, and they're like, I don't know how you do it. Like half your comments are people hating on you. And I'm like, you got to be able to separate what people like and don't like from who you are and how you show up. And to me, I can't take it personally. I can't afford to mentally and emotionally, but I know that that's a huge fear for people who want to go online is, well, what if I go online and some user 128799464 leaves a hate comment on a video that I make that I like pour my heart and soul into. So you're so right. There's such a mind aspect to putting your brand out there. What is that like for you to help navigate it with clients? Like, what do you hear a lot from people who have these fears? Because as somebody who does it, I can think of a million things that terrify me about the internet that you have to overcome. But I'm curious your take as somebody who works so closely to it.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations on the trolls and the haters. That is such a good sign. Like, I actually throw troll parties for my clients whenever they're like, oh my
Love
God,
it.
this person left this mean comment. I'm like, heck yeah, that's amazing. If you don't have any trolls and you've never gotten a troll, you're not being honest enough. You're trying to people please. Like, you're in your people pleasing energy. It is a like literally a true honor once you start getting haters, because think of anybody you admire, like who's someone you admire in the career space that's really big. I don't know, maybe like Oprah or Mel Robbins or something. They have haters, they have people talking shit, they have people that are gonna like, right, you can't get to that level without having trolls. You just can't. Like, nobody has ever done it before. So I really encourage my clients to see it as like a huge win and a huge amazing opportunity. Like, fuck yeah, I'm so happy that that I have the trolls. And yes, what are some ways that I help people overcome that cringe and that fear? It's really a self-development and an identity game. Like, honestly, the tactics of it is so small. If you want to become a content creator, if you want to build a personal brand, the tactics of it is tiny. Again, tactics is easy. Like, you post something, right? It's not even about, you don't have to have the best post. You don't have to be the best video editor. You just have to do it, right? Like with this podcast you created, 4% of podcasts don't go past episode 4. So you didn't have to have amazing lighting or be in a studio or be in person or have like the best intros or the best music in order to be in the top 6% of all podcasts. You just had to do 5 reps to be in the top 6% of all podcasts. And now you've had like multiple, even more, obviously, many more than just 4 episodes. So you're in the top 1% of podcasts now. And it didn't take a special skill. It just took you doing it. The actual hard part was the underground of that iceberg. It's all of the identity shifts that you had to move through. You had to move through. You're asking yourself the question of, who am I to be sharing this? Who am I to be interviewing these people? Are people even going to care? Like, what are people going to think of me? Like, that is where the true work is. And if you can do that, the tactics just evolve on their own.
Oh, Courtney, I love this. I want to hire you. I think this is great. It's so funny because there's so many things you're touching on that are very true, right? I remember my first CEO who reached out to be a guest on my podcast was CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And I was like, oh shoot, like, you want to talk to me about your career path? How cool. And like, it's hard not to fangirl a little, to be like, oh my God, who am I to be interviewing this super impressive individual? So you're right. You have to kind of get out of your own way. You have to do the thing. And I always like those images I see on social media. They're like, you have to make it exist first. You can make it perfect perfect and better later. Like, yes, you have to do the thing. So I love this. And back to your troll party comment, I always laugh. I have people all the time on social media who will post, she only was successful in her career because she's pretty or because she's young or because she's whatever. And somebody once posted like, I'm not taking advice from some girl in her 20s, which I'm not in my 20s. And I was like, oh my God, they think I'm pretty and I look young. And I'm like, heck yeah, like, woo, we're winning over here, right? But you have to have that mindset. Otherwise, that's going to make you feel like you're tearing down your own credibility or like you're not the right person to be doing these things. And for me, every time I always joke the women in my comments are savage. Like if a guy comments something like that, the women are like, you shouldn't even be here. That's not the point of our content. But, and I'm so thankful for that. So if you're listening to this and you help me troll trolls, I very much appreciate you. But I did once have somebody like, I'm not taking advice from a 20-year-old. And I just responded and was like, okay, with like the waving hand emoji. And the waving hand emoji got 1 million likes because everybody's like, she's trolling him back. She's not hurt. She's not upset. She's not taking it. She's just like, okay, bye.
Yeah,
Thanks
also
so
it's
much
such
for
a
being here.
compliment. That happened to me one time too, and I'm like, I still remember this compliment. They're like, I'm not taking advice from someone who just graduated college. I'm like, you think I just graduated college? I graduated college 10 years ago, and I actually tagged my Botox injector girl, and I was like, you're doing a great job. And then that comment, like me tagging her, really popped off. It was funny.
It's awesome, right? And so I love this reframe because I do think it's easy to be sensitive. We want to be liked. right? And it can be hard to put yourself out. You mentioned earlier people pleasing, and there's a Florence Pugh quote where she says, when you stop people pleasing, people will stop being pleased, and that's okay. And I love that. So, what is that difference if you're helping somebody create their personal brand? What's the difference between like just posting, just people pleasing, and like truly creating that personal brand? How does somebody kind of break through to the latter?
Yeah, it's honesty. It is honesty. Like, this is the best advice I've ever gotten from my content. Is a really big creator was giving me advice, and she's like, Courtney, you need to be more honest. You're not being honest enough. So in everything you're posting, before you go to post it, as you're formulating, as you're recording, ask yourself, how can I be more honest? How can I be 1% more honest or vulnerable? How can I be 1% more vulnerable? We get really into like, I'm going to share this tip or share this thing or like make this perfect. And that's really not what people relate to. Like, they relate to people saying so, like, let's say we're talking about career. They're not going to relate to you being like, here are 5 places to find a job. You could be like, yo, 2 years ago, I got laid off. I didn't know what to do. I was feeling this, I was feeling that. And I went to these 5 places and I found a job on one. Like, that's going to be much more relevant if you can get like in the shit with people. But it really takes honesty and vulnerability. And yeah, and also like sharing your opinion. Like, not everyone is going to agree with your opinion, but if you feel convicted and like called to talk about something, again, even if it's something so silly, like, I think that I like matcha over coffee. Like, people are still going to be pissed. They're going to be pissed no matter what you say, because psychologically we want confirmation. Like, we want to have our world around us reflect that we're making the right decisions. And if I say I drink matcha, but you drink coffee, your brain is like short circuiting, saying, oh, is coffee not the right decision? Is coffee not the right decision? So then you're being like, fuck you, you know? So it's all psychology too. It's not something that like people are out to get you or whatever. It's literally just our monkey survival brains.
Yeah. And I love this because this also comes to the root issue that people don't know what they want.
Yeah, so
Right?
true.
I have posted surveys before on my stories and said, hey, what kind of content do you guys want more of? Do you want behind the scenes of my business? Do you want family life? Do you want more about career search or job market or being laid off? And people will comment, hello, we have a guest.
Oh my
This is my,
gosh, so
this is my
cute.
guest. Hello, do you want to come sit? Will
Oh
you be
my gosh, it's the
quiet?
cutest dog ever.
Are you going to be quiet or no? No, you're just going to lick
Oh
loudly into my
my
microphone.
gosh,
Fabulous. Thank you.
so
Um,
precious.
come sit. Come sit. If you're going to come here, come here. Here you go.
Oh my
All
god.
right. She'll just be chilling with us for the rest of the episode. So if you guys haven't met, this is my dog Noelle. Santa brought her on Christmas to my children, and so she is often my guest speaker on the pod. Sometimes she lays here very calmly, and sometimes she just barks into my microphone. So we'll see. So no, but I've posted surveys and said, hey, what do you want to hear from me? And everybody's like, oh, I want job search content. And I make job search content and nobody likes it. And I post something of the behind the scenes of my business and it pops off. And you're like, but you just said you didn't want to see that, right? And so people don't know what they want. People don't know what they like. But if you come at it honest, authentic, true to it, I think you have a much higher success rate, right? Secrets of the Career Game was born out of that for me. Like, do I want corporate to work this way? No. Does it work this way? In my opinion, heck yeah. And
Mhm.
so learn to play or don't. So people want to create this personal brand. They get into that honesty, they get into that vulnerability. What are some things they can do? Like, the social media landscape is changing really quickly.
Mhm.
LinkedIn is a great example of like some things work now that didn't work a few years ago. What can people do that is going to work and that is going to help them really launch that personal brand and get that visibility?
Yeah, the biggest thing you can do is just get started, not overthink it. Like, the worst thing that you can do is be like, I need to hire someone for like $5,000 to give me a whole social media strategy. Then I need to get my website done. Then I need to get all the branding done. Then I need to go to this like social media boot camp. And then once I'm ready, I'll launch my personal brand. Don't do that. Start and then refine, or you're wasting a fuck ton of time and money that on something you don't even know is going to work. So my best recommendation is, one, optimize your LinkedIn profile. Two, post one time per week. There's 1 billion users on LinkedIn, and less than 2% of those billion users post once per week. So it really just takes posting one time per week to rank in the top 1% of all of LinkedIn. And these are the billion people that are competing for your job, your clients, your speaking opportunities, your book deal, like any opportunity you want. People are looking for you on LinkedIn, and you're going to stand out above 98% of people if you just post once per week. So it really is that simple. And then via the law of large numbers, you're going to have opportunities come to you, because statistically it's impossible for it not to come to you after enough repetitions. And then you're also going to improve over time, right? Once you have 100 posts, you can easily look back and see what posts performed well and what didn't, and inform your strategy that way and like improve, right? It's, if you post 100 times, it's like going to a piano lesson 100 times. You're going to be way better off than the person that went to the piano lesson 2 times, right? So you're going to optimize your profile. You're going to post on LinkedIn 1 time per week. And then periodically, you're going to go back, look at what performed well, and use that to learn. That is like the absolute simplest, easiest way to begin.
I love that you bring these stats into it, right? Of, you want to make a podcast, make more than 4 episodes, be in the top 6%. You want to post on LinkedIn, post once a week, be in the top 2%. Because I feel people have this perception, because they follow large influencers, that, oh, if I want to be successful, I have to be producing massive amounts of content, or every video should be going viral, or it needs to be perfect because I follow this one person who uses an AI editor that makes it look like they're floating, whatever it is, right? We get all these things in our head. And I always tell people, the video of mine that did the best, I'm in my pajamas with no makeup on, literally laying in bed. It's like a horrible camera angle. I have 3 chins. I'm chatting about something. And that's the one that popped off, not the one where I like got all done up and took it in nice lighting and edited it and added captions. No, it's like the rinky dink one that I had a brain thought at 2 a.m. and rolled with it. And so, to your point, that leans into that authenticity, that leans into that vulnerability, and it leans into like, just do the thing and the right people will come. So if somebody wants to do this, what is that right line between visibility, especially on a platform like LinkedIn, where maybe we're job searching or we're trying to get career opportunities, and showing that vulnerability? Like, where does that balance live?
Yeah. First of all, I love that you're talking about your most viral post was just like you're in your bed and an idea came. I just want to share that every creator I've ever met, worked with, talked to, their most viral post was impulsive. So get really impulsive in your content. Of course, having a content strategy, having stuff scheduled, knowing that you're going to post this thing on Wednesdays, that could really help. And also, if that's not going to go viral, that's going to be your sustaining content, the content that keeps you consistent. How you're going to go viral is you're going to be impulsive. That idea that you get while driving, pull over to the side of the road. Don't voice memo it and think you're going to come back to it later. By the time you come back to it, you're in a completely different energy. Literally pull off to the side of the road, record it right then. I don't care if you just worked out and you're sweaty and you look ugly, record it right then. You're in the shower, you get an idea, put a towel on and record it right then. Like, those impulsive content are truly the only content that goes viral. So yeah, start doing that. And then what is the balance of like vulnerability and professionalism on LinkedIn? Great question. I've worked with thousands and thousands of people on their LinkedIn, and maybe only 2 I think have gone too far in vulnerability. So go further than you think, because it probably is not far enough. I'll give an example. One of my friends, she was sharing about her fertility and why she decided to freeze her eggs, and how her company offered her benefits for that, and a whole emotional journey around freezing her eggs. And she was like, this seems kind of irrelevant to my context. She's like a career coach. She's like, this seems kind of irrelevant. I don't know if this is going to do anything. I don't know if I should post about it. This is really personal. That was her most revenue generating post ever, because clients were seeing her and relating to her in that and wanting to talk to her about it. Like, people don't want to work with you just because you have a lot of information about career, Kendall. They want to work with you because of your personality and all these other aspects about you. So I would say go more vulnerable than you think, because it's really hard to push that line. I think the only thing that I've seen push the line is like if you're doing or offering something illegal, which is the only 2 times where I was like, maybe don't put that on LinkedIn. That could get you into legal trouble.
I'm going to add one more caveat to that. Don't complain about your current employer on LinkedIn. Totally. I feel like that should be implied, but just to have said it on this podcast so that somebody doesn't go, Courtney and Kendall told me to be more vulnerable online, so I'm talking about my toxic boss. That your current boss is not what we're talking about. So just to have that in there. Also, in that moment, I realized we're Courtney and Kendall. We're the Kardashians.
Oh my God, we're the Kardashians.
I love this. I almost named my daughter Chloe, and my best friend at the time was like the Kardashians. And I was like, oh, nope, we got to pivot. We got to pivot. So anyways, we have segued, but I love that that's where we're going with this. So yeah, so I agree with you. I think, it's interesting. I post a lot on LinkedIn. I hold a corporate job. I run that career coach. I have a lot of eggs, baskets, whatever the situation, pies, whatever it is. And it's funny because I have tons of executives at work who are like, you made this post the other day, and this is so true. I'm so glad you shared that. And in my head, I'm thinking, I would have never wanted that executive to see that in a perfect world. Like that was not a post I intended for that audience. And yet they're coming to me saying that resonated with me. That was so true. Like you're right when you say that, you have to build relationships to be successful in your job, things like that. And so I always find it interesting because I think we have these reservations. If I share this, somebody's not going to like it. Or if I share this, it's not appropriate for this audience. Or what if an employer sees this and thinks it means I don't want to leave my current employer, or that I do? And in the end, a lot of the time we're overthinking it. They just are like, that was an interesting thought Kendall had. And I love that. And so kind of getting out of your own way and letting the impulsive content rule, I think is a good strategy for most people.
Totally. And if there is like an experience that you want to talk about and like you're like, I don't want to post about my boss. Like again, don't post about your current boss. You can always like talk about if there's something you want to talk about, but you cannot talk about it, talk about another example of it. For example, I work with a lot of people that are attorneys or they're in finance and they have so much confidentiality around their jobs and their clients, and they can't talk about the work they're doing. But if you're an attorney, you can talk about this is a really interesting legal case that's happening publicly, and I'm going to comment on it. So, in the same way, you don't want to talk about your toxic boss, but if you want to talk about company culture, this is a really cool thing that Patagonia is doing with their company culture. What do you guys think? Like, you could talk about the positive of it. Your boss is running the company culture. Instead of saying that, instead of posting about that, post, whoa, it's really cool that Apple has historically done this thing in their culture. What do you think? What's like a cool culture thing that you've done? So it's not getting you in trouble. It's not talking negatively about anyone, but it is still moving a conversation along that you're of a topic you're inspired by at the moment.
And that's where the strategy comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I agree. You said earlier in the episode, don't spend $5,000 on a social media manager. I always joke because this is the first thing new entrepreneurs ask me is like, should I get a social media manager? I'm like, no. Start posting stuff. Best case, get a VA who's inexpensive, who's going to help you mass produce some content or slice things different ways. But you don't need a strategy. You need content, right? And to your point of focusing on the positive, if you're doing this, if you're bringing parts of your life and you're bringing in these aspects and you're posting it, something about the company culture might pop off. And you might have somebody not so intelligent in your comments going, yeah, but I feel like our team doesn't offer it that way. Like save yourself for being that person. But your strategy is, here's the things I want to bring to the forefront. Here's the things I want to talk about. Here's the things I want to try and see how it resonates. And if you really want to talk about toxic bosses, talk about tools to handle toxic bosses. Make it general. Don't be like, my boss Courtney sucks.
Mm-hmm.
She micromanaged me on this project last week and I'm thinking about quitting. Like, don't put it all out there, but like, hey, what are some of you guys' best tips for working with a micromanager? I worked with one in my past and this is something I did that worked. And then now those comments are helping you handle your current situation, but you didn't just blow up your life. So find that balance.
That's a great tip of like talking about previous. Like if you have a really shitty coworker, don't say you have a shitty coworker, but you could say, when I was in grad school, I was struggling with a peer, and here's how I handled it. How would you handle it?
Mm-hmm. And solicit free advice. Honestly, I do this all the time in socials of like, how would you guys handle a toxic boss? And people will come in the comments with the most wild stories. And some of them are great podcast fodder. And some of them I'm like, I bet that really works. Right. So use it to build connection and community. It's something we haven't really touched on in this episode yet. But if you're looking to build a personal brand, in my opinion, don't just be so focused on the self and the like, this is who I am and how I show up. But like, how are you building connection? Who are you talking to? What are those relationships that you're building? Because all that work for your personal brand is lost if you don't use it to connect with the people around you. Then it's just an ego thing of like, ooh, I have 8,000 followers on LinkedIn or 100,000 followers on LinkedIn. But if you're not using that to build relationships, especially if it's career related, you're not going to get that growth that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're pivoting towards an internet-based society. We've gone remote. We've gone back to office, but we've also gone remote. How important is a personal brand? Like, should everybody be making a personal brand? What does that look like in the landscape of what we're doing today, whether you're a business owner or you're in the career side?
Yeah, I feel everybody should understand what a personal brand is. Not everybody feels called to build an external personal brand. Some people just don't want to do it, and that is totally okay. If you do feel called to it, I think it's your responsibility to learn about it and share your story, because there's a reason why you feel called to it. There's a reason why you feel called to share with others. So no, not everyone needs a personal brand. Will it help you? Will it accelerate your career? Will you make more money? Absolutely. But I don't think it should be like forced on anyone. But everyone should learn how to at least develop an internal personal brand. How do you appear in your company Slack? How are clients looking at you? How are you talking about your achievements? Are you, how are you being presented internally? Like, your appearance does matter. So even if you don't want to maybe create content or put yourself out there, you're still seen internally in your organization, and you do need to understand how to make that the best you possibly can.
I 1000% agree with this. And this is a mistake I think a lot of people make, is we think we don't have control over our personal brand internally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm going to do the work and it's going to speak for itself. It does not speak for itself. Just in case you were curious, I've never had a spreadsheet jump out and tell my boss how great it was. So it's not going to speak for itself. But also we think, well, Susie and I worked on this project and she liked me. She's going to go tell people. Probably not. Honestly, not because Susie's not a great person, but because Susie's too focused on the next thing she's got to go do, or on her personal brand, or on her career progression. And so building that internal brand, being intentional of, how do I talk about myself? How do I talk about the work that I do? How do I engage with people? I had a recent example, and I'm going to try not to get into too many specifics because I don't want to make this particular client uncomfortable. But an individual they worked with kept calling everybody bro. Okay. I think bro is a great word. My 7-year-old uses it all the time. I've become very familiar with it. Is it the appropriate way to address your VP? I'm going to say no. Now, you're building a personal brand with that choice of language, right? If I call Courtney bro the whole episode, I'm creating a very specific vibe for this podcast episode, as opposed to, Courtney, thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to have you here. And so I think we have a lot of control over that internal personal brand. And I love hearing you say how you show up in Slack. Slack is a great place where I see people get way too casual too quickly. Like, we're sending memes of the house on fire every time we get assigned a project to somebody that we should not be sending that meme to. And all of a sudden we've got this reputation we didn't even intend to build. So I think this is all super great. I 1000% agree with you. So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, okay, the Kardashians have convinced me I must build a personal brand, whether online or in their company. They need to be more intentional. What's the number one thing you want them to go do? What's the thing that you're like, you know what, tomorrow, go do this, and that will help you start to improve in this space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something that I offer that's really helpful is I have what's called my content club, and we meet on Zoom every single day. And I'm like, this is what you're posting. Here's the template. Here's the prompt. Go post it. I critique it.
Ooh.
I like it. I comment on it. Like, I handhold through posting content. That can be really helpful. Or post on your own. Again, optimize your LinkedIn profile, post once a week. Just by starting with those two things, you're going to get really, really far. You're going to get further than actually 98% of other people. So start there. Also follow me, consume my content. I have so many free tips on how I'm going deeper, but like, really, at the bare minimum, if you want to be in the top 2%, it's really just optimizing your profile on LinkedIn and posting once a week. It is that simple.
That's awesome. So if people are listening and they're like, Courtney seems to really know what she's talking about, which is what I think, and they're like, I want to get some of this free content, I want to connect with her more, where do you want people to go? How can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on social media. My TikTok is Courtney Johnson. My LinkedIn is Courtney Johnson. My Instagram is Courtlyn Johnson. So you can find me anywhere. If you just Google Courtney Johnson social media, I'll come up. So you can find me and you can find all my links.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to tag all of those below in the show notes too, so that people can get to you more easily. But if you guys like today's episode, make sure that you give us a 5-star review. And if you have any questions for Courtney or myself, make sure that you leave them below, and we will be keeping an eye on those so that we can get back to you. But otherwise, Courtney, this was an awesome chat. Thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Thank you, Kendall.
And scene.
Yay.